I should not be here today. I should not be standing in front of you with the life I have, the education I have, and the success of finding my dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever heard of the ACEs? The ACEs are adverse childhood effects. Now, the ACEs can impact a child's life far beyond childhood. It can cause difficulties in childhood with memory, learning, with behavior, regulation. But beyond that, according to the CDC, the ACEs can cause long-term implications in a person's life. They can have difficulty having relationships. They can have difficulty maintaining jobs. They can have difficulty completing their education. But I stand here in front of you today as a story of great hope. And part of my story started the night that my dad was charged with attempted murder. I was able to stop him, and on that weekend, I was sent to live with someone that had started trying to molest me around 8 years of age. So a really bad situation just got a whole lot worse. After that, I went to a school a couple of months later, and I have been very, very lucky to be in a great school from kindergarten to the middle of grade 11 until that day. But the next school that I was sent to put me on this path because I went from being a great student, having that safe place, having that school that was a protective factor that allowed me to be successful, to a school that was not so good. My marks immediately dropped, and I was barely passing. So I decided that I was going to do a regional school, and that included doing a 2-hour bus ride morning and night, and I was waitressing in the evenings and weekends full time, because my mom, at that point, had no income and no way to support us. But you can guess, after a few months of this, I was exhausted. And on top of that, I was trying to deal with all of these things, but the teachers had no idea, zero. They had no clue of all the things that were going on in my life outside of school. They just saw this girl doing her work, doing her thing, trying to participate, and not causing any problem. So in that student experience, the teachers had no idea of what was going on. I went back to that school that wasn't so great, and again, my marks dropped. I had, at the regional school, gone back up into 80s and 90s, and I was doing well. That shaped my life for the next few years. I didn't go back to university until later, in my early 30s. Those events impacted my life and had a long-term impact. But it's a story of hope, because I'm here today to tell everyone with my story that our children that are going through these things can be very successful in their lives if they have great teachers, if they have great schools. I'm Janet Blackmon, Dr. Janet Blackmon. I keep forgetting that part. I've done so much. I've been able to travel the world internationally in education. I've been able to make my dreams come true. And today, my message for you is one about changing education. The CDC says the implications of these ACEs can last a lifetime. But I stand before you with a career, with success, with great health, and all of the implications. I've been able to avoid them because of the protective factors of great schools. Transforming education is my purpose because of my experience. Now, education right now, we have a lot of changes happening in our world. Just think about it. We have so much challenge and so much uncertainty, and our children need a different experience. We need to prepare them for complex change, to be able to handle what is in their future. According to Statistica, over 720,000 hours of new content is on YouTube each and every day. Now, we need to prepare the students to be critical consumers of this content. They need to be able to understand how to use the content and think critically about where it's coming from and how it can impact their lives. We also need to make them critical creators of content, because this content is shaping our world. We have to be able to teach our children how to analyze, how to think critically and contribute, and our institutions are no longer the gatekeepers to the knowledge in our world. Anywhere you have an internet connection, you can find the content immediately. Children are now going online and making money. Hand up, how many people have seen the TikTok families or the children online that are saying how much they're making each day? Yep, I've seen a few. I had a child in a grade 4 class that we were teaching, and she created a Bitcoin system for parents to pay their children for their weekly allowance and their chores. A 10-year-old kid is changing the world. These types of things are what we're preparing our children for. We need to empower students. They need to be innovative and reflective. We need to develop their communication skills, their self-management skills. And I want to tell you, working in systems with great schools that have these self-management skills have helped me as an adult regulate myself better in the face of PTSD and dealing with the ACEs. These schools are helping individual people that are within them, from the children to the educators. This kind of transformation is necessary. So our student experience right now, let's think about it for a second. How many people in this room have experienced a grade that they didn't agree with from the teachers? Heads up. I think we've all got a couple of stories along those lines. Now, our student experience, the grading system is based on, according to Schneider and Hoot, in 2013, their research, they said that it's based on a system that is over 100 years old, based on institutions communicating to each other. Grading should help learning. It seems to make sense, but grading right now, is it really improving our student learning? We have a testing culture. We have systems that have some have changed. We have great schools, pockets of incredible schools doing great work. And we also have a couple of other things. According to the National Survey of Children's Exposure to Violence, 15.5 million children are exposed to violence. According to the CDC, I think 1 in 7 children are abused or neglected. Now, when our children are coming into the schools, they are already impacted by this. And they're learning, giving them a grade when they can't learn at that point because of what is happening at home for them isn't motivating them to learn. It's not helping them to learn. It's creating a bigger divide. We also have to look at our current system with children, that we're looking at a lot of content versus concept. And the content is not necessarily what they need now. They need to look at big ideas, be able to make the connections, be able to understand how to use the information, and be able to apply it. So activate their learning, inquire about their learning, and apply it. It is no longer just memorize, regurgitate, and forget it. Regurgitate it and forget it. How many people are really good at that? We have a few educators in the room. So we have to look at how what we are doing in the classroom is impacting our student experience. We're on the edge of the digital divide. Information content is there. Our students are saying that they're enjoying learning online, they're enjoying using AI, they're enjoying using virtual reality. In our classroom, we did an experiment with our brains and the synapses and how we learn, and then we were using a virtual reality device to go through the brain, and the students were so engaged and captivated in understanding how their brains worked with this virtual reality. So we need to change to have more agency for the children. We need to change to make sure that we are allowing them differentiated instruction so that they're able to engage in learning in meaningful ways. Differentiated instruction is so important. So if I brought one pair of shoes in here, size 7, and put everybody in that size 7 pair of shoes, how is that going to work? It's not. Okay, what about a tiered system where we have response to intervention and we have 3 different levels? Okay, so now we have 3 different pairs of shoes. We've got a 6, a 7, and an 8. Is that going to work? I think it is time that we understand the impacts of what we're doing in the classroom to prepare our children for the future. We also, in doing this, need to understand that we have to make a lot more time in the day for the students to be able to do the inquiry, not separate it out into language arts, math, science, social studies, history, art, but transdisciplinary, so they can make the connections across the big ideas, across all of the concepts in the different disciplines, so they can make true meaning and understand and apply what they're learning. We also need to acknowledge our human experience, the student experience, what they're bringing to our classrooms. And as we're looking to make transformation, we have to think about how we are going to change for the students that are in our system so that they can function in the world that is going to be surrounding them in 10, 15, 20, 30, 100 years. If we think about for a second that preparing them for that future looks like helping them with skills instead of content, concepts instead of content, and looking at making sure that agency and across the disciplines, transdisciplinary learning is happening in our classrooms. What can you do today? What is one small change you can do today? After hearing some great ideas, what is one thing you can do? That one thing is going to cause a ripple. And in those ripples, together, we can transform education. So that children, like the one I was, and the children that are in our schools, and your children, can be successful in their futures. Thank you.